relationships of our peoples and our governments and our two countries. President Gustavo Petro, you will always be very welcome in Bolivar's homeland, in our beautiful homeland. Thank you very much. Those were words of His Excellency Gustavo Petro, President of the Republic of Colombia. Thank you. President of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro Moros. First fighter, Celia Flores de Maduro, and their children. Vice President of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez. Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Carlos Faria. Ambassador of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, our officials of our Colombian government, our ambassador to Venezuela, Armando Benedetti, our Minister of Foreign Affairs, our cabinet boss, our ambassador to the Organization of American States, also member of the Inter-American Commission for Human Rights, national media, Colombian press, Venezuelan press, all the citizens present here. In these hours, we are coming through neighboring problems to the world, to talking about the world and its problems as well, ever-growing problems. It is anti-natural. In more human terms, I would say anti-historical that Colombia and Venezuela are separated. It happened during some bad moment in the past, and it should not happen, because we are the same people. We have the same blood ties. It is difficult to differentiate among the heritage of the Colombians, mainly because of the flags. Millions of Venezuelans received millions of Colombians. It is difficult to make a difference between the genes of our two peoples. We are mixed by history and by common roots and by blood. That's why separating the countries became a suicidal adventure. I wouldn't say any derogatory terms. Any political form that is adopted in any of our nations. The friendship among our countries should be maintained. 70 millions were killed during the World War I, and today they understood good neighboring. First place, the good trade in the neighborhood goes in favor of everybody. They call that neoliberalism and globalization. And this is better in Europe than here in Latin America. Despite our speech, Europeans have done more than we have. That's why here, after several years, 6 according to the press, we have a new Colombian president and a Venezuelan president come back to speak. This should have occurred on weekly basis and not after 6 years, to restart, to resume a path which is difficult, but it needs to be walked on. This path begins by rebuilding the border. The borders is in the hands of the mobs, of what we call the multi-criminal organizations whose head it's multinational already. Is the expression of a failure of something called anti-drug trafficking war that began 50 years before and has only left fracturing in our countries for societies and for the states, sinking whole countries in crisis all along these trafficking routes. We have talked about it. We're going to rebuild relationships we have among our intelligence services to be able to hit not only the drug trafficking worker, but the owners of the money. They are dangerous for the stabilization, for the political stabilization that also demands a great Latin American Conference of Presidents to re-examine the failure that we have had over the last 5 decades, with a trace of blood, jail, with over 110,000 dead toll a year, and all because of a fentanyl. We have talked that this border needs to regain its commercial potency. We're going to celebrate a trade meeting in Cartagena, so our trade agents can build strong ties and we can have strong trade where small farmers can visit each other and establish popular economies. We talked also about a common policy about the defense of the Amazon. As you all know, the forest, it's a pillar shared by 4 countries, essential for the ecological balance, because if this balance is lost, humanity will disappear from the face of Earth and all life. It's a process that we need to stop, and it has to do with an economic system that intensively uses oil and coal, and we both, Venezuela and Colombia, have lived on it. This needs to be a common effort of the countries that share Amazon. And one of our agreements is to present all these issues in the COP27 meeting in Egypt. I hope Brazil integrates to our effort, because this is a fight that needs to be carried out by the whole humanity. The defense, revitalization, and of the Amazon as a fundamental pillar for human survival. We have talked about the strengthening of the Andean community. Someday Venezuela will a founding member of this community, together with Colombia. The Andean community was the platform that allowed the industrialization of our countries. When it weakened, the industrialization processes weakened as well, and we ended up in a negative situation, all member states of this Andean community. Now we want to invite Chile, Ecuador, Bolivia, and Peru to accept the return of Venezuela to the Andean community as a full member. We have requested as well that Venezuela be a member of the Inter-American Council of Human Rights. The Inter-American System of Human Rights means liberal democracy. Once it was approved, what happened in Latin America, it was signed in 1972, I believe. They began to build it in the late 60s by men. Back then, we were relegated by men in the political power, by men that formed a convention over the fundamentals of liberal democracy. And a year after, what happened was a coup d'etat against Salvador Allende, the total destruction of democracy, Pinochet's dictatorship. From that moment on, during decades, 3 decades, dictatorships, and we had also revolutionary wars on the other hand, resulted in millions of Latin Americans in exile, and only time after in Uruguay and Venezuela they could close this stage to open a new one, the Pacific installation of power. I am the living proof of this new period. Today, before the barbarism in the world, before the fascism advance and the authoritarianism advance, migrations that are answered by bullets in the borders, as in Europe, where the word democracy was born, and even closer to Greece, Mediterranean Sea have become a common tomb. Even here in Latin America, when people cross through Darien, when they cross through the Rio Bravo, it's showing to the world's progressivism and the one in Latin America that we need to defend the old concepts. Now we need to defend them from the Inter-American System of Human Rights. And that's why we have requested Venezuela to strengthen this system. Even under the new signs of the times, the new phases we are living, that this time needs to generate a true integration of all the countries of Latin America, in deed and in word, in the projects, not only in speeches. Today the world looks at us somehow, Latin America, due to the barbarism, the political times, and the pressures created by the climate crisis, and the lack of capacity of this world of solving this climate crisis, has no other solution than war and xenophobia. The only answer is returning to Mussolini and his ideas. Latin America is today a beacon of democracy for the whole world. In the past, it was Bolívar. Now, they translated the words from French to discover what democracy was. And we won, but we did not apply the theories. Today we don't follow the theories. There's nothing to follow. There's nothing in the world saying, translate me with the efforts of of the candles. It is our choice now. It is our choice now. We can become a torch, a beacon, if we want to. And I believe it is our turn to become beacons of democracy. And that is why we need to integrate, to come together to the people without whom anything is possible, and to inaugurate a century of lights that is needed, because without a century of lights, what's next is extinction, and we have a role to play, an effort to make. And that's why, that's the reason of our requests to our neighboring and brothering nation to join us in our efforts that is needed to build world history. We need to dialogue. We need to be open, because we don't have any recipe to guide us by. We only have instinct. We only have our own thoughts. We only have our own history. We only have world history. And upon them, we need to light the torch to yell democracy and liberty. Thank you. For these hours, we will continue these debates, discussions, and meetings on a brotherhood that should have never been broken. Thank you. Thank you.
Así culmina esta importante reunión de trabajo en la visita oficial del presidente de la República de Colombia.
We're watching live the statements of President Nicolas Maduro and his Colombian counterpart Gustavo Petro. The heads of state held a working meeting in Caracas within the framework of the re-establishment of bilateral ties. Both presidents discussed issues of economic interest and commercial integration. President Petro made reference to the fight against drug trafficking and stressed the importance of returning border commerce to normality. The heads of state also discussed the importance of preserving the Amazon for the future of humanity. President Petro referred to the strengthening of the Andean community, and for that end, the return of Venezuela to the Andean community, as well as to the inter-American human rights system. Stay tuned with teleSUR for more updates in upcoming news briefs.